5 homes every day? No? Okay, so there's 2 parts. You have to grow your business, that's your lead generation time, and you have to run a business, which is the other part of it. Market your listings, go run around showing homes, negotiate deals, manage the transaction, manage your vendors, set goals, do all that lovely paperwork that we have nowadays, attend training, and manage your bucks. And that's exhausting. Can we go next? Okay, so you should be turning into page 5 of your guide. Is everybody there? I don't hear anybody. It's quiet.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I have the right packet, because yesterday or Tuesday, the packet was a little different. So I downloaded what was on the invite, and I have the packet that's 5.1.
No.
Okay, so.
It should be Ignite Elementals 5, the buyer consultation.
Yeah, so mine says buyer appointments.
Yeah, that's okay. So what you downloaded, Ignite there's 2 different ways to do it. We're doing Elementals, which is appointments and consultation in one. What you probably have is the other part of Ignite, which is just setting the appointment for it.
Okay, so where do I get the materials then, if it's not what was attached to the invite?
It should have been, and that's what I had attached to the invite. Corinne, can you help out with that?
Yeah, sure. It should be, I'll have to stop screen sharing, but I'll put the link in the chat box right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so while that's going on, let's talk about finding buyers. Did you guys go over that yet? Where do you find your buyers? No, yes. Did anybody tell you how to find a buyer? What's the easiest way to find a buyer?
Contacts?
Yeah, well, your database is probably the simplest. And some old school tricks of the trade. Wear your real estate pin. Because when you're out and about, especially in this market, somebody sees that, their first question they're going to say is, oh, how's the market? Guess what the easiest answer to that is? Why do you ask? How many people here have taken the time, besides in command, setting out to all of their database via email, a little handwritten note with your business card saying, hey, I'm in real estate? You know, it may be a little old school, I'll admit it. People look at mail all of a sudden a lot more than they used to, because, well, right now they're home a lot more than they used to. And not as many people are using mail. So that's the way to get it. And inevitably, it will happen that as soon as people find out in your real estate, oh, I'm looking for an investment property, or I'm looking for a foreclosure that's a bargain. Has anybody heard this yet? No? Wait, it will happen. Or I saw this property on the corner of yada, yada, and yada, yada. Can you find out for me how much that is worth? So that's going to be out there. All right, so let's talk about, okay, so you found somebody who says, I want to buy eventually, okay? Or you hear that through your database and everything. Couple of things that I've learned, even this past couple of weeks, as soon as you're talking to somebody and they say, I want to buy a house, I'm not ready right now, but I want to buy a house, make sure they're in your command and then set up an opportunity for them. Because every day when you're in command and you look at your opportunities, that list, that person's name is going to pop into your head. And even if they say to you, well, you know, probably going to buy next year, you're going to want to follow up with them. And generally, we're taught you're going to label your buyers one of three ways: an A, B, or C buyer. A C buyer is the, yeah, I got to get my credit score fixed. I got to save up money. I'm still living at mommy and daddy's. But someday I'm going to move out. Okay, so that C buyer is somebody you're going to stay in touch with. You'll probably send them your app. You may send them a quarterly newsletter or put them on. Do you guys know what a 36 touch is? Anybody hear of a 36 touch? No? You're going to put them, I heard a yes.
Yes.
You're going to put them on a regular communication and try and make that as much of that automated as possible so you get their mind share, not their time share. Does that make sense? You want them to think of you, but you want to spend a whole lot of time. Next, you're going to have your B buyer. To me, a B buyer is somebody who's about 6 months out. They may have one thing on their credit score that they need to fix. They may sit there and say, well, I'm changing jobs and I just want to get a little bit more saved up. That's a B buyer. Okay. Now, and again, you're going to put them on a form of communication. You can create a nurture opportunity so they don't get lost in the sauce. You may check in with them a little bit more than you would like a C buyer. You may already have a mortgage contact with them. If they know that they need to clean up something in credit, well, then they've spoken to a loan officer who you can also follow up with and say, hey, John Smith said he was going to pay off that credit card to get his score up. Did he do it? Because you also know if somebody's wasting your time or not and just giving you, you know, a fee. Then there's our A buyer. We love A buyers. They are so good. A buyers is somebody who really wants to buy in the next 30 to 60 days. They are ready, they are willing, and they are able. So they are pre-approved. They have a very good reason to move at this time. Ready, willing, and able, and they want to. So let's say it's a young family and they just found out that they're pregnant with their third and they're in a 2-bedroom condo. They want to get out. Relocation for job. That's somebody who's in a rush, you know, to buy. These are people you want to spend your time with, going out and showing homes, because the likelihood of them buying something is very high. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so the next part of that is when you have this A buyer and you want to have that A buyer work exclusively with you, you're going to want to set an appointment for a consultation. Now, this is going to get a little bit tricky here because our guide that you're reading is telling you should sit down in person with them. Obviously, with the state of the country and the state of the state and the state of health, we're not doing that, correct? So what are some ways you could meet and have a discussion with a buyer to have them sign a contract to have you represent them? This is where you guys get to speak.
You could do a Zoom call.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear some others. I'd love to see faces, people. I got 10 people in here and only 3 faces. Jewish guilt here, Jewish guilt. Anybody else besides a Zoom call? How else could you make an appointment?
Speak with them on the phone.
Yeah,
And then
okay,
if they're interested in signing the contract, you could send it to them,
yep, okay,
right?
absolutely.
FaceTime.
Yep, that's a good one.
Email, I guess.
Yes. All right. What about a socially distanced outdoor meeting? Could you meet at a park where you could be 6 feet apart? Yes, no?
Yes, yes, I think so, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So what you don't want to do, and I should make you write down, I will never just meet a buyer at a property. Because again, that goes back to, you could be sitting there showing somebody something. First of all, for safety, you don't know who they are. You don't know if it's going to meet their needs, and you don't want to waste your time. So let's talk a little bit about, what would you discuss with a person in a consultation that they would want and need in a house?
Okay. Okay.
Square footage.
Okay,
Location.
okay,
School district?
okay,
How many bedrooms, bathrooms?
okay. So does everybody in here have some kind of questionnaire for a buyer, that questions you would ask?
There was some, there were pages in the buyer presentation that were a list of questions, the one that's in command.
Yep. And could you build that out
Yeah.
for that? Okay, so that's one. I would, again, I'm old school. I do things a little bit differently. I know for me, when I work with a buyer that I don't know, I actually have about a 6-page questionnaire. And I usually tend to make husband and wife or partners answer separately, because I find a lot of times they're not always on the same page, and they don't know that until they start comparing notes. Does that make sense?
So what, do you give them each the questionnaire?
Yep. And I tell them no cheating. Because one may want a 3-car garage in a finished basement, and the other one may say, I don't care if I have a garage, but that kitchen better knock my socks off.
Yeah.
So then, where's the common ground? Especially if they're in a budget. So let's go back to, and I'm kind of skipping around, and I need to make sure by, Corinne, can you get them to a show of hands? Who's following and who have I just bored to death already?
Following. Mhm.
And you can turn your audio on.
I'm following.
Okay.
I'm following.
I'm
All
following.
right. So it's making sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, yes, you can go into command and you can create your buyer guide in there. And that's something really that you have to take the time to set up. And the reason we tell you to set that up is because as you're working with a buyer and they have downloaded your app, as they complete each step of the process, that guide is going to guide them through the process according to how you do business. So has anybody been in here and started playing with that yet?
No.
Yes.
One yes, one no.
I have not.
Okay,
Takes
so
time.
that's going to be part of your homework.
Oh, boy.
This is the fun part.
Well, you know, I
Uh,
don't want to take everybody's time and sit here and give a command lesson during this. You, of course, are free to email, call me, text. Don't text. I'm not a big texter. I'll be the first to admit it. Any questions, if I can walk you through command on setting something up, I gladly will. I personally, I'll take the classes that Eileen offers. I'm old. I can't remember what I had for breakfast or if I even had breakfast. So I go to the YouTube video. Either I go to Lori Ballin, who's got each and everything broken down, or I go to Ziemba, I think is his last name. Corinne, help me. What's that guy's last name?
I don't know. I know Marty Miller, Lori Ballin,
Leroy has some.
Jay Cermak,
Nick Baldwin.
Nick Baldwin.
Yeah, so all that, you can take value from them. The only thing I will tell you is, for right now, make sure you take anything out about Keller Mortgage, because we don't currently have Keller Mortgage in New York. We are trying to get it, but it's not there yet.
So
All right.
Susan, do you have a buyer presentation packet that you've created in Command and a separate questionnaire, or do you include the questionnaire in your packet?
I have a separate questionnaire.
Okay.
And the reason I have it separate is because if I meet you in person and we're in an office type environment, I want to be able to hand it out this way. If it's going to be a digital meeting, I send it well ahead of time, and I can take that and I can go into DocuSign and I can create check boxes and send one separately to the wife and one separately to the husband or the spouse. Sorry, not being to be politically incorrect here. And I can see their answers. And actually in DocuSign, you can put check marks next to everything, and they don't see what the other one checked off. So then when I get back the completed document and we're having a conversation, whether it's on the phone, Zoom, or whatever, we can go over that and I can email in advance and share their changes with each other.
Okay. Do you find that giving them like a multiple choice question versus them writing stuff in is more helpful for you?
I do, because can't always read their writing. If you leave it blank, it leaves them the opportunity not to answer. And if I'm going to spend my time in my gas, I want to know exactly what I'm looking for these people. The other side of that coin is when I find them something that checks their boxes and they won't pull the trigger, I have the opportunity to go back and say, okay, do you remember when we first sat down? This is what you said you were looking for in a home. This house checks all those boxes. Has something changed that you don't want to buy this home?
Okay.
Which at least, it allows me the opportunity that maybe they didn't come clean with me in the first time, and that's why we have to see 27 homes. Or maybe their situation has changed and they just don't want to discuss it. Either way, at the end of the day, I'm trying to find them the best home with the least amount of hassle. And that least amount of hassle has to do with both of us. I want you to think of this, because as a real estate agent, your time is money. And part of what they tell you in the Keller Williams system is to focus on listings more than buyers. The reason for that, on average, it takes 7 hours to sell a listing, 17 hours to sell a buyer. If I can knock down that time on a buyer, I have more time for my family, myself, or to build my business. Everybody good with that?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so, and they're telling you here, and you can see on the screen, thank you, Corinne, setting up people with the neighborhood insights. Has everybody put a neighborhood insight into command? Have you
Yes.
seen the neighborhood insights?
What is
Yes.
Okay. And again, building the profile, and because you want to know everything about that buyer that you can. I remember one year, I think I was at family reunion, and I was in, one of the breakout rooms and stuff like that. They have like masterminds there, something similar to this. And one of the agents turned around and she goes, well, I'm from the South and I'm going to talk to you on the phone. And by the time you come into my office, I'm going to know who your first grade teacher is. Lesson of the story is get to know your client. Get to know what they want and bring value to that. Are we good with that?
Yes.
You got one yes? Rest of the crowd?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, good. Have I bored anybody to death yet?
No.
Oh, good, nobody's dying. Okay, so does anybody here know what the difference is between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification?
Well, I see it used interchangeably, so I'm not sure.
Anybody else?
Pre-qualified means that they're not necessarily approved for the loan. It's just the first step. So you really want the client to be pre-approved, right?
Correct.
Say-
Listen, go on.
No, I wanted to hear that. So first you see if they're pre-qualified?
A pre-qualification is just a call. I can call up any one of the mortgage brokers and say, oh, I want to buy a house. How much am I good for? And they'll ask me some basic questions. How much do I earn?
Okay, I got
Credit
it.
score. When you're pre-approved, that means you've submitted documents. They actually run your credit, and they're saying that without having an address, they will fund your money. So you're always better off working with a pre-approved buyer, not just a pre-qualified buyer. And a lot of times if I'm meeting with a client, and especially in this market right now for buyers, how many people have heard of or seeing about bidding wars?
Yes. It's terrible.
Okay, prices are going up. I listed a property Monday, Tuesday, I got an offer 10,000 over ask.
Oh, I have buyers and they're saying, there's no way I would pay over the price that they're asking.
All right, so we're gonna go into that in a little bit.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And what our goal is though today too is for them to hire you to be their expert. But you also, like I said, you want to make sure that you're only choosing to work with people who are going to be ready to pull the trigger and can. So part of your consultation is going to be asking them and getting into their money. Don't be afraid to get into their business a little bit and ask if they've been pre-approved or pre-qualified. And if they haven't, making sure that you put them in touch with a mortgage officer that you trust to make sure that they can get pre-approved, and explain the difference to them between the pre-approval and the pre-qualification. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so when, just a quick question on that. Do you get a blanket they can buy up to a certain amount from the mortgage broker ahead of time, or do they create a pre-approval letter for each home that they want to make an offer on?
When I sit down with the consultation, I need to know how much they can spend. When I'm presenting an offer, that's a different story. I'll go back to the mortgage officer, because if they're looking at 300 homes and they're qualified to 450, I don't want the listing agent to know how much they can spend. And I will generally try and get it specific for that property if I can. Not all mortgage brokers play nice like that, especially when it's crazy busy like this.
Right.
And in this market, actually, I want the pre-approval to show that they can spend slightly more because it is very competitive.
Right. Now, do listing agents typically require proof ahead of time, or is that really more for our benefit as a buyer's agent to make sure that we're not wasting our time?
In this environment, there are a lot of listing agents that will not allow a buyer into a property without a pre-approval.
Okay.
I will always ask the question. I know if somebody's looking to schedule on my property, or even if I get a buyer call, are you pre-approved? I had some guy call the other day. Well, we're working on it. I said, I'm so sorry. When you get it done, please call me back. I wasn't going to have him go into my seller's house not knowing he could afford it.
Okay. Thank
All right.
you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions?
No.
No? Okay. So there are a gazillion agents out there. Right now, I think since we joined the multiple listing service with Long Island, there are 28,000 participants in One Key MLS. Which means anybody looking to buy a home can pick anybody they want. Why would they pick you? So let's take a couple of minutes and think, why would somebody hire you to work for them?
Susan, I just want to call back to the Keller mortgage page here that's in the buyer consult. This is the page that you would need to remove if you are editing the buyer consultation in Command, because Keller Mortgage is not offered in New York State.
Yet. I'm working on it. Rosemary's working on it. Everybody's working on it. So tell me, what's part of your value proposition?
Well, I'm looking at this real value, real experience.
Right?
Now, this is very competitive. I mean, 15 years, 268 total clients served. I mean, I'm 4 years in business. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to bring this to their attention, and you don't have quite as many total clients served, you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, and I get that, and most of the people on here are new. So,
yes.
and you can edit this, right? This can be edited in Command. So what if you were to say years in business and say the brokerage, Rosemary has been in Keller Williams 11 years. Okay. Total clients served. Why not change that to last year we sold umpteen properties? You can research that on the MLS.
Well, what if you haven't really sold, you know?
You're not saying you have, your office has though.
Oh, is that what I'm saying? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you see, listen, if my stats look stinky, what's the first thing I do is I go to the office stats. Because they look mighty impressive.
Well, they may ask you which one's what. You know, is this?
Well, you put it in there. Listen, don't be shy. And nobody survives alone. So when you're a solo agent and you don't have a lot of history, that's okay. Because then you don't refer to yourself as a solo agent. My company. Oh, my brokerage did 435 transactions last year. And if you want to play devil's advocate and they sit there and say, well, how many did you do? Personally, you know what? I am part of this big group or team. Me personally, I've done 4 or 5, but at Keller Williams, everybody works together. So that's what I'm telling you, what we've done as an office. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, you are a team. Everybody in here has a team. You have yourself. Okay. You have an MCA in your office. We have a call center for your phone calls. You have a manager. You have a business coach. You have trainers. You have people, your profit sharing companies. So you have a large group. Actually, you have 185,000 agents who want to see you succeed because you're a profit share company. And don't be afraid to put that out there. Any other questions on that?
No.
No. Good.
And also, I just want to add, your value proposition is not just in statistics, right? It's about who you are as a person, what your specialty is, and what neighborhood you're working in. So there's a lot to your value proposition that's beyond just the numbers. So don't get too focused or caught up on that.
Now, remember what we said, you want to know your buyer. That time that you're taking to listen to that buyer, what is it they say? You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use it proportionately. You're building that rapport. Everybody knows what Ford is? Have you heard the expression Ford?
Yes, too bold. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're building that rapport. Like Corinne said, the numbers are a backup, but hopefully by the time you get to this, just like that broker in the South, by the time you're sitting down with them, you're going to know who their first grade teacher is. You've nurtured that relationship and built it. Okay. So, and if you want a numbers person, do we have a lot of numbers people on here? Some people are all about the numbers.
No.
No? Do you know, though, just so you should know this resource, you can go to your MCA and you can pull up your market center numbers. So one of the things I personally find of value is if you go to the MLS, okay, and you run, Corinne, can I get my screen on there? I want to just show them.
I'll stop my share and you can start yours.
Okay. All right. So let me see if I can get onto my screen here. All right. So somewhere back here, I'm looking for. All right. There we are. Oh, come on. It's going to be in my way. Sorry.
You can
The
drag
top
your
of the,
mouse.
I just got to move that down. Okay, so if you go into MLS, here we go, and you were to search here, office listings. Okay, these are all the office listings. I'm going to do it a different way. If you go into InfoSparks here, okay, which is going to make me sign in again. Nobody look at my password. Come on. try this again. Info Sparks. Okay, so if you were to go, come on, into, let's say, Rockland County, here, and it doesn't matter what county you're in. If you were to go to, this thing is going to drive me. Percentage of list price, okay? You see this here? This tells you, on average, that in Rockland County, homes are selling at 97.7% of sales price. All right, so just follow with me. Then if you were to go into Hudson Gateway and search single family homes detailed, sold, it's going to give you the last 6 months of sold, your selling agent office ID, and ours is KELHUD. 129 houses have sold. And if you need me to walk you through this at a different time, I will. If you to click on all of them and do a quick CMA, on the bottom, it's going to show you, I'm just moving this, the percentage, it should be, of list price to sale price, 93.79. So, and Corinne, you can take that off now. So if the rest of the MLS is selling at 97.4% of list price, and our office is selling for their buyers at 93%, it shows that we're saving our buyers on average, make sure you use those words, on average, 4% of the sales price. Is there value in that for a buyer to hire you?
Yes.
Isn't that awesome? Because right then and there, you know, you're sitting there saying, well, and they'll say, well, should I use you? Well, let me just show you these statistics. On average, Rockland County buyers are paying 97%. However, my office, they're paying 94%. Wouldn't you rather have 3% more in your pocket?
Do all the market centers have the same code that you put in there? Does it pull up for all three?
No, you would have to put it specific for your market center.
Okay. Would you mind putting that in the chat so we have the code?
Yeah.
I don't know the one for Middletown. Please email Erin if you are in Middletown. She'll give you all the information for that.
So, but that in itself is a powerful tool. And, you know, you can flip that back on the other side too. If you're working with a seller, you can sit there and say, well, the average listing agent gets so much, you know, for the house. Our office is currently getting this much, or I'm currently getting this much. Of course, if the numbers don't work in your favor, you're not going to use it. Okay, so this is the interesting part. They'd like you to do some role playing, which, because we're not in a live environment that you can practice with each other, couple things. Who here has a script partner that you practice your scripts with daily?
No, I don't.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
So when you're practicing your scripts, that's one of the things you should be. If you need a script partner, you can put your name in the chat. There is also a Facebook group. It's called Practicing Script Partners. It is moderated by Ron Wexel. He is a mastery coach out of Chicago. And you can find people all across the country that will do role playing with you. It's a great way, A, to build your business network. It's a way to hear how things are done in different parts of the country. However, I can tell you this, no matter where you practice, you're always going to get the same objections for anybody else. So I'm actually going to give you a couple minutes. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with an objection. How would I answer something? My goal is to get you to sign an agreement to represent you. I met with you, we've spoken. I know you want a Cape Cod on 2 acres with a fabulous kitchen. You need a master, and you're looking in the Minisink Valley School District. And I'm saying, and I'm picking on you, Beth, I'm sorry. So Beth, hire me and let me go find you your dream home.
Yeah, but you just started and there's so many other experienced agents out there. Why would I go with you?
You know, that's a really great question, Beth, and I appreciate you asking that. And you're right, I did kind of just start, but doesn't that make me a little bit hungrier than somebody who's already got 27 things done? I want to, you know, I'm anxious to, you know, work with you and get you that home and be able to say proudly, look at this person. That was my first client.
Yeah, I guess you won't be as busy, but what about if questions come up that you're not, you know, familiar with? How do you handle that?
You know, and you're right. There may be questions along the way that I'm not that 100% familiar with. And that's why at Keller Williams, you know, we take that team aspect approach. And I do have a mentor that I work with. So anything that I can't answer, of course, I'm going to go to her and get the answers. And she's been in the business over 20 years.
Where do I sign? No.
Here's your papers. Come on, you people got to have questions. So, all right, so let me put some things out to you for some foods for thought. How would you respond if the buyer says, well, I really don't want to sign an agreement, but I just want to see this house. It's over on Maple Avenue because I know that one ticks all the boxes. And when I find the one, I'll buy it. There's not steam coming out of anybody's ears yet. Because it will come up. I can't even, and Hazel, I know you've been doing this for a while. Obviously, you've heard that one before.
Yes.
Okay, so when somebody says that to me, that's a cue to ask another question. Well, I so appreciate when you find the one, you will move. What happens if that's not the one? Well, we don't know. I'll just stay where I am. So.
Not very serious, is he or she? The buyer's not, you can see that they're not that serious.
Right.
To buy
I mean, go on.
They're not that serious to buy a home. They're, you know, they just want to see homes, and if one hits them, then they'll buy it. But really, they're not really looking seriously. You know.
I wouldn't call them an A buyer. At some point, yeah, they may buy if they find the right home. And I'll be honest.
And that's why they don't want to sign the agreement, because they're not serious, you know.
Correct. So I handle that a couple different ways. if I'm nosy and I want to see the house too, I may go do it. Because remember, you're supposed to see 5 houses a day anyway. Just because you have a buyer's agency agreement, you don't have to make that for 6 months. I've done a 1-day agreement, a one
Really?
house agreement. Yeah.
Really? Is there a spot there that says you can only, that it could only be this home that you're
Yeah.
showing them?
You write it in. And I've done it with people that I don't know, like a walk-in or something, and they want to see such and such home. Here's my script. You know what? We have an appointment today to go see this house. We don't know each other very well. I may not be able to work with you. You may not be able to work with me. However, I'm spending my time, my talent, and my expertise today. So I'm asking you to sign this agreement that if you should buy this house, I will represent you.
I didn't know that. Thought
I've
it
never had
had
anybody say no to that. And usually at that point, after that day, they're going to be loyal to me anyway. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question about the previewing because I wasn't sure that right now we could preview homes in person. I mean, obviously
Yes.
going online and looking at the pictures and all that, you know, I'm doing, but I'm not going out and previewing homes.
I would say this. If there's a particular area that you're looking to establish that you're the neighborhood expert at, okay? They're doing, now we can do open houses by appointment.
Right.
I would go to an open house by appointment.
Okay, and just be upfront that I'm
You're
it's an
previewing
agent preview.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can put in agent preview as long as I send them my hold harmless form. They will give me access to do a virtual tour if I want for a client. That I've been doing.
Yeah, listen, everybody's got their own comfort zone during this, you know, current
I wear a
situation.
mask, I wear gloves, I wear booties. I just do the whole thing and I do a video.
So I would say though, for a newer agent, and I'm putting myself back 20 some odd years ago, the end game here is to know as much as you can about houses, housing style, and trends. And you can look online from here until doomsday and back. I'm still old school. I need to see. So the more homes you can get out there and see, the better opinion you'll be able to form. They used to say in old school real estate, you can't sell your market if you don't know your market. You need to know your inventory. That's a way to get out there and see the inventory, especially somebody who's less than a couple years in, and get familiar with things in homes, get familiar with HVAC systems, get familiar with looking at things like roof lines and pitches and stuff like that. You know, you have time on your hands, every single virtual tour you can look at. So I see we have been at this at an hour. Why don't we do this? Because I know everybody's probably getting a little stiff and stuff sitting. Let's have everybody turn off their video. You don't have to unless you want me to see your couches or wherever you're comfortable. Take about 10 minutes. Go shake it out. Use the restroom. Come up with any questions you may have. And let's meet back here. Is everybody cool with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you guys. It is 3:01. I will see you back here at 3:11. Possible. Any ahas from what we've talked about so far? This is the part where you get to participate. Any ahas?
Yeah, I have one, Susan. So I appreciate you going through the value proposition section. As a newer agent, I've been in the business for 8 months now. And when I do buyer consultations, you know, we're selling ourselves, but I tend not to include numbers of what I've sold because to date, I have some in the pipeline, but I haven't actually sold anything yet. And I know probably a few other newer agents could probably relate. You definitely don't want to say that out front to whichever buyer prospect you're meeting with. But you know, talking about the market stats, I feel confident including that in my my next buyer presentations.
Cool. Anyone else? Can I need 3? So that's only 1.
You know, but I have to say, I don't think I've had like a buyer consultation, like a formal consultation. I've spoken to people, but I don't think we've had like a one-on-one where I had to make a presentation. So I think I still have to have my first one to see what it's like. I've spoken to people and I've talking over the phone here and there, but not an official consultation.
Okay, it'll come. Okay. Anybody else? One more aha.
Yeah, it was really helpful for you to categorize the buyers into 3 different A, B, and C, and then really spell out like, okay, what do you do to continue to follow up with that person? Because they're different depending on where they're at in the process. And I really liked what you did with InfoSparks and also with the MLS of narrowing it down to our market center. Because like Kim, I'm new and I really don't have stats of my own yet. So being able to pull stats for the market center is critical in order to build the credibility, I think, for me with buyers.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like for me right now, I'm trying to break through. I'll be raw here to luxury. It's hard. I have not sold in my career a lot of multi-million-dollar homes. You know, it's just, you know, I've sold a few, but to sit there and say, oh yeah, you know, last year I did 8, you know, $2.4 million deals. First of all, we don't have that kind of inventory, and I'd be lying. However, our market center does have those kind of transactions in there, and I can pull that in. I can also pull it in because I'm a member of Luxury International, their stats, how much Keller Williams on a national level has sold volume-wise in luxury. And it looks a lot more powerful that way. So, all right, so part 2 here, and I am way behind, folks. I am like so off script. Your app, does everybody here have their app set up?
Yes.
Yes. I've been hesitant to send it to more people because I've been getting, the people that I've sent it to are having trouble using it, honestly. They're crashing. And I feel like it's at a point where I want to make sure that it's actually working before I send it to more clients.
Okay, so I know that there was some funkiness when we merged with Long Island to create the One Key. It's created a lot of wonkiness that even I don't like. I would say share it anyway. You can't make them use it, but you can just remind them of the convenience of using it, because when they're using it and they're searching for the homes and they're saving favorites, guess who's going to know that? You will.
Yeah.
So, and the idea is to keep everybody's information in one space. They actually want me to spend like a whole bunch of time on this. I'm going to be just quite honest. I don't have, just like you, Beth, I don't have a lot of confidence in that app just yet. And Corinne is saying, yeah, tell them to delete it and reinstall it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It's going to depend a lot on what version of phone they are using. I still know people who use, don't get embarrassed, but flip phones. And some of the older model phones, it does not function well in. All I can say is that they're constantly updating it in the background, so use it to your advantage. The other part of that is that when they're using the app, it's linking them also to that buyer guide. So as they move through the process, it's going to help them with that because that will come up on it as well. It's also going to link back to your website, which, again, there's a couple reasons for that. You want to increase your SEO, your search engine optimization for your website. As people go on and off your website and it gets more user history, that lovely little thing called Google checks how many times people are clicking on a site. The more it is clicked on, the higher it comes up in rankings. So there's your little SEO tip for the day. So, and what Corinne has brought up here on the screen, you can see as the agent, when they're viewing things in the app, how it's going to help you for their favorites. So you see here, they edited a collection and they put to favorites here. They're saying Cedar Park, Texas. If I was the agent and I saw that, I would probably call that agent and ask, hey, is this property fully available? Is there anything you can tell me about this property that's not in the MLS? And then you can follow that up with your client with an email, a text, or whatever, and say, hey, you know, that property is 100% available. Did you want to go see it? Or you could sit there and say, hey, I spoke to the agent and I found out that one of the bathrooms is really dated and I know it was important for you to have everything updated. Do you really want to keep that as a favorite? You're spending the time to invest in them and building that relationship. Everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Corinne is saying right from there, they can put in when they want to go see your property. So it ties back to that guide. And now we're starting to get to the point where this is getting like yawny.
The other thing that I got some advice on when sharing the app is to let people know that it's new technology and that there might be some kinks, but we want some feedback. So use it, give us feedback so we can improve it in the future. I thought that was helpful just because then if they do encounter an issue, it's not a surprise. So
yeah, I mean, I will tell people, listen, I can send you my app. It's not perfect. I have 185,000 people who have an app from the same company. They're working on the back end of it, but use it like anything with a resource. The one place I never recommend that any of my buyers look for property is Zillow. And everybody says, oh, but it's so easy to search on Zillow. Anybody heard that one? I see Kim smiling. I tell them directly, Zillow does not get information directly. Zillow has to get it from everybody else. Therefore, the information you find on there is probably not accurate. If you want the most up-to-date information, text me an address and I will call the agent and find out for you. Okay, so we got to get back to ahas, and I want to see if I can get this wrapped up in about 15 minutes. Is everybody good with that?
Yes.
Get out a little early.
Mm-hmm.
My dogs are starting to get restless upstairs because it's almost their dinner time.
Yeah.
So let me get 2 more ahas for today.
Okay, no, no.
Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Who's 1862?
Hi, that's me, Chanel.
Never mind this.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So tell me something that you found useful today for your business.
Well, I mean, everything was useful because I just started as a new agent last week, so I'm just taking everything in like a sponge.
That's good. Welcome to the business and the Keller family.
Thank you.
So, okay, so what about you, Brenda? Any aha from you? Nothing like putting something
Hi.
on the spot.
I thought I put mine in the chat. And now I'm trying to recall what it was. But myself I'm a seasoned agent, but I always think I can learn. So that's why I'm here. And I've loved everything about it. It's really been quite helpful. And I love your script about when someone wants to see a particular or wants to go out immediately. And I, like someone else said, I didn't know that you could do a 1 day.
Yeah, yeah. I remember one time I had a property listed and a man called and he wanted me to meet him at the property to show it, which
Right.
is, I won't.
Yes, correct.
So he started giving me a hard time. And we got mostly women on here and men. This is something you can appreciate. So I just turned around to him. I said, you have a mother, a sister, a wife, an aunt? And he's like, yeah. I said, would you expect them to get in the car and meet a man's voice that they had only heard from over the telephone at an empty property? And he's like, well, no. I said, well, then why would you expect me to do that? I don't know you.
Right. That's
He
great.
came, he happened to live around the corner from the property. He drove the 8 miles to the office to meet me in person with proof of funds, and then we went to the property.
Wow. But
The moral of the story is if they want to see the property bad enough, they will jump through the hoops. And if they're not willing to jump through those hoops, they can go work with somebody else.
makes sense. Thanks. I really am enjoying the session. Like I said, that's why I'm here, because I felt like I could pick up some information, and I picked up several tips. I appreciate it.
So, all right. So now I get to beat you guys back up about your schedule. Does everybody have their time scheduled to work on their business? Not in their business, on their business.
Honestly, no.
Okay. So listen, I can tell you everybody, and I mean everybody,
I get caught up in the business opposed to on.
right, struggles with time blocking. We all do. I struggle with it. And you can read tip after tip and book after book to get there. At the end of the day, if you're going to grow your business, you have to do the 5 things. You have to do script practice. You have to lead generate. You have to do lead follow-up. And you have to do contracts and negotiate deals. That's your 5 things you must do every day. Reminders work. Practice, practice, practice. When the question came up before about seeing that house, you saw how I rolled it off my tongue? That's really great. I'm glad you want to see that. Let's sit down and talk about it. That comes from practice, years of practice. For me, this is what I started actually just a couple of weeks ago, and you can see my screen. I write down every morning 5 things I must do to grow my business. And my day is not done until those 5 things are done.
What is uncover motivations? What exactly is that?
What do you mean?
Uncover motivations. I'm looking at this. Uncover motivations.
That's the conversation you're going to have. The screen is going wonky on me. It's going to drive me nuts. That's the conversations that you're going to have, why somebody wants to buy a house. Uncover their motivations.
Okay.
Conversation. Next. I see what you're looking at. Identify objections. Is this what you're talking about, Hazel?
No, uncover motivations. Uncover their motivations.
Right, yeah. So when you're lead generating,
okay.
you're lead generating. Okay, so I'm calling, well, who did I call this week? That was motivated. All right, so I have a call for a listing appointment on Friday. Okay. Why does she want to list the home? And I had that conversation with her. Well, Ann, you know, why are you looking to move now? And the answer was, well, none of the kids live here anymore. My house is dated. I got it in the divorce. It's the time. It's time. So now I know. With a buyer, well, why are you looking to buy? I need more space. Okay, great. How much more space do you need it? Why do you need more space? You know?
Okay.
Okay.
Answering the questions, the normal questions.
Asking the questions. You should be able at any given time to ask anybody on the phone 5 to 10 questions about their circumstances. Hello, how are you? How is your family? How is your business? As soon as you ask somebody about business, they're going to ask you about real estate. I can guarantee you that. All right, next, practicing scripts. They've given you a whole bunch of scripts. Here's the thing about scripts. You never want to sound like you're scripted. How many times have you spoken to somebody? You get a telemarketer calling you, which you should not, by the way, be getting right now. I am having so much fun with them. Under the executive order, do you know they cannot call you till September? So how many times have they called and you know they're just reading a piece of paper in front of them?
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't want to be that person. So when you practice something enough, it comes automatically out of your mouth and you don't have to think to respond. And that's why I said, if you don't have a role partner, make sure you get one.
Can you have a pretend one?
Actually, yes and no.
I do it in the mirror sometimes. Just role play.
And that helps because it helps. If you ever taken acting lessons, they're really good, by the way, for giving presentations. Talking in the mirror does help because it helps you see your facial expressions that you may not normally see.
Yeah.
Ideally, you do want to practice with somebody else because you need to be able to prepare the response and not know what the question is going to be. So if I were to sit there and say to you, so Hazel, I don't want to buy a house for $650. I mean, I know I'm qualified for $750, but I really only want to stay at $5. And by the way, I want everything in a $650 house. You get it. It's a legit question. Do you have your answer ready?
No.
Okay, so years of practice, I can sit there and say, you know what, Hazel? I appreciate that. And really, I don't want to make you spend any more than you have to. At the end of the day, the market's going to dictate the price of a house. I don't make it. You don't make it. It's what the market will bear. And the amenities that come with a house can always be added or subtracted once you find a house that meets your requirements for space and location.
Now, is that not necessarily a script or something you've learned over time? You know, learn to.
It's words that I've heard in response that I have formulated. That's a script. Knowing how to answer a question. How's the market? Why do you ask? Normally I wouldn't answer a question with a question, but that's a script that I learned. Why do you ask? Because I want to know, why does somebody want to know about real estate?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I think actually I made it through most of the material. Dang, it's a good day.
Mhm.
This is where you now can go off script and ask Susan anything about anything. Because you have about 10 minutes.
All right.
Or we can say adieu.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's part of this class because I didn't attend part 1, you know, but at what point do you have to do a CMA for a buyer? Is it necessary all the time, or?
I would do a CMA for a buyer when they're looking to put in an offer. So when they're considering purchasing a house, especially when it's a buyer's market and not a seller's market, to establish a good price point, a good offer for them to put in. Currently, we know, depending on your market, again, that means going into MLS and checking stats. In a lot of places, homes are selling at over 100% of list price. So if you're in the town of Woodbury, okay, which is up here in Orange County, and the median sale price is $485, and in the last 6 months you can see that 27 deals have sold at 100.4%, and they were looking at a $450 house, you're not going to advise them to put in a $430 offer. You're going to show them, listen, if you want your offer taken seriously, we've had, 28 houses sell here, and out of those 28 houses, 26 have sold over list price. And somebody brought up before, somebody saying, well, I'm not going to pay so much for that house.
Yes, I get that a lot.
I don't feel it's worth it. Well, at the end of the day, I understand you don't see the value in that house, so maybe that's not the house for you.
Right.
Because in this market, in this town, the past 6 months of sales have shown this trend. Remember, we keep being told to be the economist of choice. You have all the economics at your fingertips. Use them. And if you're not sure how, reach out, give me a call, I will walk you through it. That's why I gave you, it's my phone number.
So I have a question. I was watching I can't remember, it was a training or a webinar with another Keller Williams agent, not local. And in their buyer presentation, they actually said something around like, once we show you 5 homes, we'll ask you to make a decision so that you're not getting stuck in the indecision funnel or something like that. Is that a tactic that you typically use or recommend?
I don't. Again, I spend a lot of time trying to find out exactly what it is they want and what their motivation is. I've done as little as showing somebody 1 home I've showed people homes for years. I
Mhm.
don't think there's any rhyme or reason behind it. Everybody's circumstances change. Like I said, I do find spending the time on the front, getting their information, have them filling out a questionnaire, and when you find a home that checks all those boxes and they won't pull the trigger, bringing them back to that and saying, okay, this is what you said you wanted, but you don't want to buy it. Why is that?
Mhm. Okay.
One of the things that I would agree with is I typically try not to, unless it's relocation, is show anybody more than 5 houses at one time.
Okay.
And generally, if we're doing that kind of tour, I give them a book, and I want them to rate a house when they go in the door. And I usually tell them, rate this house between 1 to 5. 1 means that I never want to cross the threshold again. And 5 means, let's stop the tour, we're writing an offer. And if I get, a couple 2s and 3s in there, it helps me whittle down. And then I can ask them, at the end of the tour, okay, so that house was a 2. Why was it a 2 for you? What didn't you really like?
I like that.
If it was a 4, great. What would have made it a 5? Because if it's a 4 and they don't want to give it a 5 and it's a repair issue that they saw, well, that can be negotiated. So here's an example. Well, you said you like this house on Maple. It was a 4. What would make that house a 5? Maybe the answer's like, I don't like where the kitchen window is. All right, that's great. So is that the only thing that would stop you from buying this house? Well, and then you got to find out what the rest of that is. The kitchen was dated. And then I can sit there and say, okay, so we have a couple things we can do here. You're qualified for 485. That house was 425. Let's look at the difference. You can either go back and you can get a renovation loan since you're qualified for more money, and you can get the kitchen that you want and buy this home at the same time. Or would you rather look for higher priced homes that already have the kitchen done? So now I'm whittling it down. If they're saying it's a 2, okay, so you really didn't like that home. Give me 2 or 3 things that you really didn't like so I don't show that to you again. Sometimes I feel like we're in such a rush. We don't want to take the time to communicate with our buyers. And I think that causes us to have to show them more homes than we really need to.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I do too. That's great. Great advice.
I agree with that. Yeah, because you don't know how you're worried how they're going to take it or how they're going to,
Listen, we're the experts, okay?
Yes.
And again, explain to them that my fiduciary, and we throw out that big word, it sounds all kinds of important. My fiduciary to you is to find you what you want at the best price. I can't do that unless we have an open level of communication. So don't be afraid to insult me. It's not my house. And I've made that joke. Hey, I ain't living here. I don't care what you have to say about it. The only thing I'll say is let's talk outside, because nowadays you don't know who's got video and audio on.
Oh, right.
So never talk inside the house. It's all over YouTube. You can find the videos of people getting their houses insulted.
I have buyers in this market that shouldn't be in this market because they just don't agree with the bidding wars. They don't agree with giving more than what it's worth. It's a crazy time. So
it is. And that all comes down to, again, showing them the numbers. And you know what? I always put it off on somebody else. My favorite script is, listen, I don't got time for numbers. I'm not a numbers person. I don't really like numbers, but our association pays people to track the numbers. And this is what the numbers are saying. Blame it on the numbers.
Right, yeah. But it's almost like they don't hear you. You know, a buyer sent me a home that was way over their price range. They just said, what about this one? I said, is there something I don't know? Because this home is really over your price range. And they said, no, I would just ask for less.
Well, and that's where you, rather than just telling them the numbers, email them that numbers. That info sparks can be printed out.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Because they don't seem to hear me. They don't seem to get it, you know.
Well, like I said, I'm nasty and rude. I don't care. I will print it out. I will highlight it. And I will email it to them and say, please read this.
Yeah, really. It gets to me. It's like, wow.
Listen, and I've had to call up agents and eat their kind of crow and, you know, say, listen, New York state law says I have to present all offer. That's the law.
Right.
I'm not making up this number. My buyer is a butthead.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm admitting they're a butthead. Can you please submit this offer after you finish laughing? And the other agent, for the most part, when you put it to them that way, is not going to get insulted. They're going to understand and do what they got to do. If you put it any other way, you're going to get, I'm not giving that offer. That's too low. My seller's never going to sign it. And they're right. They're not.
No, they're not. And yeah. And then you have the cash offers. They think because it's cash, it's gold, you know, but they don't want to offer.
Okay, so I have the script for that.
Yeah, good.
It's all cash to the seller because at the end of the day, the seller is walking away with the proceeds.
Of the cash offer?
Of anything. When you go to sell a house, you
Right.
have proceeds. It doesn't matter whether the other person got a mortgage, whether their cousin fronted them, or they robbed a liquor store. At the end of the day, the proceeds are the proceeds. So just because you're offering cash doesn't matter. They're going to walk away from proceeds with a mortgage.
Okay.
And when your buyer, by the way, is pre-approved, you know they can get the mortgage.
Right.
Okay, I just have a question. How will you deal with a buyer that wants to make an offer based on what her mechanic says? She wouldn't see a house until her mechanic sees it and find out what needs to be fixed, what doesn't need to be fixed. And she goes, I'm not gonna make an offer. My mechanic has to go look at it first.
Okay, so I would sit there and explain, I very much appreciate that you want it to be inspected. Part of your offer is going to be contingent on that inspection. So either A, your mechanic's gonna have to come touring with you, especially in this climate, or put the offer in subject to a home inspection. And at that home inspection, if you find that the house does not meet the needs that you have because of the condition of the mechanical equipment, you can always walk away from the deal. However, you don't want to lose what could be the best possible house for you by delaying getting into a financial agreement with the seller.
Okay. I've tried, but hopefully it will work at some point.
What is their motivation? Why do they want to go see houses?
No, it's an investment property. She wants to buy an investment property, but every
Not in this market.
Yep, she goes, oh, my mechanic have to see first. So, but I've told her the mechanic has to come with you the first time.
Correct, and any offer is going to be subject to an inspection anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I see something else that everybody, it's just like an observation that I've had. I guess it's also communicating with your buyers, because I was sending a buyer houses to look at, and he just kept rejecting most of it, but I never knew why. Some of them were really perfect houses. And I said, this one is perfect. And then he goes, oh, but it's built before 1990. I don't want anything that's built before 1990. And I just didn't know that at first. So all this time, I don't know why I didn't know that. So I guess maybe I didn't communicate better.
And that's why I said that's the importance of getting the questions answered up front, so you know what you're looking for. I mean, I'll admit, I've literally run into people, especially that are coming up from New York City, that have no idea what they want. They just know they want a house. It happens. If you've lived your whole life in an apartment and you've only looked at houses on Realtor.com, they first of all don't have the perception what the difference is between a half acre, a full acre, or 5 acres. They don't have the perception of living on a double yellow line road or a 1-lane road. They don't have the perception of difference between a colonial, a Cape Cod, a split, or a bi-level. I have literally taken buyers and say, okay, this is your first time out. You're not from the area, you don't know it. We're gonna look at 5 different style of homes in 5 different settings, so you can get an idea of what you like best. And I'll take them to see a Cape, I'll take them to see a colonial, I'll take them to see a ranch, I'll take them to see a contemporary. We'll go in a village, we'll go in the city, we'll go in the country, we'll go in the boonies, so they can get an idea. Because at Dollars to Donuts, somebody coming up from Queens who says, I want a house on 5 acres, has no idea what 5 acres really is. And when you take them out to 5 acres, they're like, I gotta cut all this grass.
So it's not a very good question then to say, so how many acres would you like?
No, I never ask how many acres.
Oh, okay.
I will phrase it more.
Outside space?
No, what size yard would you like?
Okay.
Are you comfortable spending a lot of time mowing it or having somebody mow it for you? Or do you want something, a little bit more, what do you consider manageable? Ask them, what do they want?
Right, okay. I think I've said that.
Just like the other thing I'll often tell a buyer is, listen, when you buy a home, you have 2 choices. Either you're doing it yourself or you're writing a check. And you need to know going into this process, what kind of person are you? Because if you can't do it yourself, you need to look at what your budget is for repairs when you buy someplace. Because somebody who can't spackle and paint and, change a light fixture is not going to buy a handyman special on a tight budget. Because if they're going to be at a 45% debt to loan ratio, you're not going to have a lot of money to hire contractors to do everything.
Right.
Which brings me back to the importance of speaking to the loan officer when you get that pre-approval and finding out what the debt to loan ratio is. How much wiggle room are they going to have every month? If their debt and loan is only going to be 30% of the income, they can do a handyman special because they got money to write checks. First-time home buyer with the FHA who's going at 42% is on a tight budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I throw that right in their face too. When they're looking at something that needs a lot of repairs, hey, we may not want this because if you're not handy and you're already tight with what your monthly payment is going to be for your mortgage and taxes, this might be a little bit more than you got to chew. And the worst thing for me as a realtor is for you to call me in 3 years from now because I got to sell your house, you can't afford it. Don't be afraid to have a tough conversation. All right, it is 3:50. I'll give you one more question. My contact is in the chat. Anybody? No, then I'm gonna say sayonara. My
Bye-bye.
dogs are upstairs going feed me. And thank you for coming today. And don't forget to leave the feedback.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Bye.